So much of the history that we learn about war is that of destruction, of violence, and of hatred. But surely, something that affected so many different people couldn't only have negative memories for everyone involved. There have to have been some positive experiences that these men and women had from their time serving their people and their country. My goal through my project was to find examples of these stories in my own family, specifically my great-grandfather, Ronald Kennedy, a World War II veteran from the British Royal Army. Through researching him, between interviews with my family members, and from the acquisition of war records from the British archives, I was able to learn so much about my great-grandfather and his service. He enlisted in February of 1941 at the age of 19, strictly because he hadn't already been called to duty to defend his family and loved ones. After completing his training in Scotland, he was sent onto a flotilla and shipped across the Atlantic to the United States, specifically Boston, to pick up American recruits. On their trip back across the Atlantic, my great-grandfather helped to train the recruits on the deck of the ship, preparing them for the fighting ahead. They landed in Gibraltar, and shortly after, he was sent to Algiers to partake in Operation Torch, the liberation of Northern Africa. He then was sent east and participated in the landings in Sicily and Italy. While in Sicily, he spent the November of 1943 in an American hospital while fighting malarial fever. He left Italy from Livorno a little while later and wound up across France and Germany for the remainder of the war. After the war had ended, he spent his time in Cologne and Flensburg, a small town on the Danish border, and frequently drove to Antwerp to pick up supplies. After being released from his duties, he returned to normal life. Through these interviews, I was able to learn about many different stories my great-grandfather had passed down, and I had found my holy grail. Of the 11 stories that I had learned of, only one contained any traces of violence. Once I had these stories, I needed some way to present them, something original, something challenging, something that would help bring these stories alive in the 21st century. I decided upon the art of graphic novels. I was drawn to graphic novels because of their simplicity, and by the fact that they are enjoyable by people of all ages. I spent time learning the art of graphic novels. To learn about them, I read a graphic novel about making graphic novels, Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art by Scott McCloud, and looked at Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi for creative ideas. From these, I learned the general flow of graphic novels and how to introduce action into simple drawings, among other things. I also got my style that I had used from these 2 books. Finally, it was time to begin my work. My plan was simple. I would create a quick storyboard of the stories on paper before creating them on my computer using the application Metabang Paint. Finally, it was time to create them. I chose a style that would be simple, using black, white, and various shades of gray. One difficulty I had was with drawing hands. One way I worked around this was with taking photos of myself modeling the hand shape I wanted for the drawings, then recreated them in the drawings on my computer. After countless hours drawing, I finally finished my graphic novels, and I could not be happier with how they turned out. To look at the graphic novels, you can use the link in the description below. There you can see both the full graphic novels as well as zoomed-in images of each frame to make them easier to read and see. Metabang Paint was a great software and is great for any level of drawings and can be used in so many different ways. I found that the pixel drawing tool worked the best for me combined with special shape tools and the fill command, but it can be changed for whatever project you have in mind. If you want to look into a family member who served, while I can only speak for the British National Archives, I found the process of acquiring the information quite simple, but be aware it can take multiple months to process the data and get the files. Through the gov.uk website, you can get the forms required for your own service records, as well as the relatives or other military personnel with cause. You can either apply as the next of kin for the records, meaning the direct descendant, or with the permission of the next of kin. You can also apply for limited files of people's services for the purpose of general research. But unless they've been deceased for more than 25 years, many of the files are not public information and cannot be shared. The form requires information such as your name, address, telephone number, relation to the person whose files are in question, as well as the person's name that you are trying to get files on. This is how I obtained war records for my great-grandfather. For my project, I need as much feedback as I can get from everyone, so please do go check out the final graphic novels. Once again, they are in the description below, and please fill out the surveys as well. These help my project so much and take very little time. There is a survey for people with English as a second language as well, and the questions can be translated if needed. If you're not comfortable with answering in English, feel more than free to answer in another language. Any feedback or suggestions you can give will help in the final stages of my project, where I need information on how successful I was, using criteria developed by me to evaluate my graphic novels. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the virtual fair. Have a good day.